These AI systems are new overall in the world, and everyone's learning on how to best implement them and make them as accurate and useful as possible, including Google.
If I'm a business and I'm listening, is there anything that I need to be doing differently in terms of getting my content to rank in AI mode or in AI overviews?
So we're still in the early phases here, but I think that our goal is that this is as effortless and easy as possible.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Imaginative Podcast. Today I'm super excited to be joined by Robby Stein. Robby is the VP of Product at Google Search. A lot is changing in the world of search due to AI. We have new entrants in the space, but of course, Google has been innovating. We have seen them release AI overviews and now the new AI mode. So, Robby is joining us to dive deeper into Google's plans for search, how they're thinking about product innovation in a space that is rapidly changing. Robby, it's great to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I wanted to start, Robby, by asking a question that I heard on another podcast that I thought was really cool. What is it that people should know about you that they probably don't?
Hmm, that's interesting. It might be that I was, when I was younger, and still am a magician,
Really?
and did some birthday parties. So I think you could say that I am a hobbyist, but technically at some point was professional on some birthday circuit. And I've loved magic my whole life since I was 8, and spent a lot of time practicing magic and enjoying it. And I think maybe a little bit of a bridge to technology because of our products, I think can truly be magical and blow people away. I guess I'm like consistent
Yep.
and like to do that even like in my free time as a hobby sometimes. And with 2 little kids, it's starting to be something I do again.
I'm sure. That is amazing. I'm a big fan of magic also. I'm sure we're going to have lots of sidebar conversations. So thank you for joining us, Robby. And I wanted to make the most of this time that we have together and dive right in. Before we get started, though, I wanted to just spend a few minutes to level set everyone on some of the new releases that Google has put out in terms of their search product. So, do you mind just taking a step back, explaining to the listeners what is AI overviews and what is the new AI mode? How are they different? And why should they be excited about it?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, AI has not been new to search, but last year we took a big step forward with an AI-centric experience called AI Overviews. And what it allows you to do is to get a quick snapshot of information with links to dig deeper for really things that you have on your mind. We call these kind of like answer-seeking questions. When you have something pretty specific, you can put that into Google. It might be, hey, how do I get a coffee stain out of my couch when I have toddlers or
Yeah.
something? And frequently see is a short blurb that gets generated by AI at the top with helpful information and links to dig deeper and learn more.
Mhm.
It may include links to other articles or how-to videos, links to YouTube or embedded videos, and really it's to give you that snapshot of information and the context. And that's something that we've been rolling out across the world. It's now available to most of the
Yeah.
world via the last set of announcements. And it's also something we've been increasingly connecting to our multimodal experiences, which for people who aren't familiar is how you can ask questions with video or voice or photos. So you could take a picture of something and ask about it, or actually take a screenshot on a device and also ask questions about that as well. It might be you take a picture of a piece of art and you ask more about the background of it. We can answer those too. So we're excited because it really is the beginning of starting to pretty widely expand what Google search can do for you and provide as natural as possible of an interface for those experiences.
Oh, all right. Obviously, there are lots of new entrants into this space. OpenAI is exploring search features. You have tools like Perplexity. Google kind of took their time to roll out a generative AI solution. Why was that the case? Were there technical challenges that you were looking to solve? How has Google been intentional in its rollout of AI mode and previously AI overviews?
Yeah, obviously, when you have a product that people use at such a large scale, you want to be sure you get it right and you're really thoughtful about how you approach this. And I think we started by understanding what are the kinds of questions people are asking of Google and how can we make those allow you to ask even more and in the more natural language and ways that people can now ask. And really that created AI overviews.
Mhm.
And the way it works is because people come to Google for such a wide set of questions. You might be just learning about a new band. You just type in the artist's name, nothing else.
Yeah.
It's not a question. There's like, no, you just want to know what's up, right? And so in some cases, you actually want a totally different experience than something that might feel more AI centric with rich information. You actually just might want to browse, or you might look for gardening ideas, and you actually want images, right? So Google accommodates such a wide set of questions. We really got to get it right. and bring AI to the front where it makes sense. And so the system actually learns this, and that's what AI Overviews really offers, which is AI where we found it to be most helpful. And what we learned in rolling out AI Overviews is that people wanted more of it, and they wanted to be able to wanted the control and choice to say, hey, I have a question that I'm pretty sure AI can be helpful with. And by the way, I want to also ask follow-up questions and go back and forth. And that's something that's pretty hard to do in the construct of the current search experience. And that led us to build this experiment called AI Mode, which is a place you can go as a mode selection or as a shortcut in a few places, like in the app,
Mhm.
to just ask whatever's on your mind. Again, you can use plain English, natural language. And as of recently, the last few weeks, you can take a photo or use voice as well. And then what will happen is the AI mode will go find the most helpful information for you, along with links and ways to dig deeper, bring that all to you in this new experience that we built out, which is currently in labs and we're really excited about and happy to share more about.
So let's talk AI mode because that sounds super interesting. Reading through when you released the press release around about AI query fan out, can you double click on that and explain how that works, how it integrates with your ranking algorithms and real-time data?
Yeah, so with AI mode, it's really a very powerful model that brings together the power of Gemini's foundational models with thinking and reasoning
Mhm.
with the real-time information systems of search. And so it's really magic. We've really designed it to be focused on informational needs. Like what are the kinds of needs people we see coming to search, but really being able to expand what's possible in those spaces. So we didn't design it to be like a general purpose AI product that can generate images for you or upload huge amounts of data to, but we really designed it to be great at finding and understanding information. And so what that means is now when you ask a question, we've trained the model to use Google search. And so what will happen is you ask one question
Mhm.
and it will do something we call query fan out, which may generate multiple other questions that could be related. It will then go out and find the most useful information, both in terms of the web, but then also across all of the interesting real-time systems that Google has built out. So that might be the billions of products and catalog data that are available, real-time information from local listings, businesses, real-world information. There's Knowledge Panel, which is a whole incredibly rich knowledge base of information. And all of that information can then come back to the model, and then the model can generate a response that gives context and links to dig deeper. And that's really this really unique experience we've built out. And now hopefully the idea is that you can come to Google with really any question on your mind and get a great experience.
All right, I'm buying that so far. But two things that I think every creator has on their mind, and then just people generally. For a creator, is AI mode going to really help in terms of driving discovery? Or is it about keeping users in the Google ecosystem?
But what we're finding is that when we add AI products and experiences like this, it's expansionary. People use these services more and it creates growth. So what we've seen is, for instance, with AI overviews, people are using Google more, searching for more things and newer
Mm.
things. An example of this is with Lens, which is our photo-based experience, which is also available in AI mode. You can take a picture of a bookshelf and say, what are other interesting books here? These are hard, these things that were just not possible before.
Yeah.
And so when we generate an AI response, and it includes links to interesting, great good reads, authoritative articles. There's opportunities, hopefully, for websites to rank and be discovered. And because of the query fan out technique I mentioned, it gives a broader and more diverse set of websites that could show up there too, because it's going beyond the original query in the thinking and the reasoning steps of this experience. And what we do find is that people, they want this context up front. They want to be able to get a sense of things, but then they do click in. And I think what we hear from users is they want to ultimately see where information comes from
Mhm.
themselves. They don't want to take anyone's word for
Yeah.
it. They want to see a diversity of perspectives, and they trust certain sources, and that hasn't changed. And we've really made, I think, connecting to the web and diving deeper an absolutely critical and central design principle, both with AIO, AI overviews, and AI mode.
Got it.
Because and a few things we've done there is actually train the model to link to other websites and have them show up where most helpful. As you read AI mode responses, like it will actually link directly to websites where it finds that helpful. It could be booking things, reading more, seeing lists. And we're working on this as a key design principle because we see that as something as people really want and is really useful.
Now, in terms of the link into websites, Google obviously has so much experience with their ranking algorithm, and that's an advantage that many of the newer startups don't have because we've seen instances where the quality of the sources are pretty low. Maybe they're from just a chat room on Reddit. Maybe it's just from a website that somebody decided to write an article about. How is Google thinking about bringing high quality sources into AI conversations and to reduce the ability to get low quality sources?
Yeah, what's cool about AI overviews and AI mode is that it builds on the 25 years of search signals and systems and knowledge that exist. And so during this query fanout technique, the systems are using these underlying search signals to understand, hey, what pieces of information, what websites have been the most helpful given the context of these kinds of questions before. And all of that's available in helping the system determine what to show the user. And in the same case, there might be websites or sources of information that have been maybe manipulative or
Mm.
generated specifically to attract attention in ways that haven't been helpful for people. Our systems have detections and ways of finding those too. And it's not a brand new thing in that regard. It's really an evolution, a core part of our search experience, building on that foundation.
Okay. And so if I'm a business and I'm listening, is there anything that I need to be doing differently in terms of getting my content to rank in AI mode or in AI overviews? How should businesses be thinking about this?
Yeah, I think that in general, the principles are very similar. You ultimately, what we recommend in terms of if you look at Google's history of content guidelines and rating guidelines and search best practices, is really tied to something that's outside of products. It's really like how do humans find for certain information helpful? Does it answer the user's question? Is it accurate? Is it factual? There's a whole bunch of things that if you're doing, it's great, and that has nothing to do with any product. It's just as a person, when you're experiencing information, you're going to trust it, value it, and find it helpful. And so the more that people are producing that information, the more that should be something that is detectable and is found in the systems and prioritized. And so I'd say it's a very similar set of best practices. And that's nice here because we're using very similar signals to determine quality in this context.
All right, awesome. I am sure a lot of businesses have been trying to think of how they can have the equivalent of SEO for AI. And so that is good to know. So search historically has been Google's cash cow. It's a massive part of your business. And so when you think of it, it's not just a simple UX change. This is really business transformation if this entire experience is to evolve. And we haven't been seeing ads on search in the AI overviews so far. Is Google thinking through a way of monetizing AI overviews? Should we be looking to see ads in our conversations in the future?
We are doing experiments to understand how ads could work in these experiences. I think if you abstract away the product again, just think about information and people's needs. People want to find information, and in many cases, the ads and sponsored content is as or more
Hmm.
helpful because getting an offer or a specific way to get the thing you're looking for is incredibly useful, and that connection is valuable, just in the context of search today, and also in the context of these new AI experiences. It's really no different there. And so we are experimenting with ways that advertising can work in these new surfaces. But we've been really focused on particularly for AI mode in the short term, building a great experience that's working for people, and especially given it's a labs and it's fairly early for us over time.
Yeah. The other big question that businesses and users have is really our own trust. Can they trust the systems? We've seen hallucinations in the past. Why should I trust an AI overview or a result that I see in AI mode versus just traditional search? And how is Google tackling things like verifying content and reducing hallucinations?
Yeah. So these AI systems are new overall in the world, and everyone's learning on how to best implement them and make them as accurate and useful as possible, including Google. And I think that in our case, there's so many interesting underlying signals that can be used
Mm.
to back up information because of this long history that I think that we're uniquely able to build something that is as accurate as possible. Now, it's not to say that it won't make mistakes, it will, and it has. But for example, in something like AI mode, what we've tried to do is really train the models for accuracy. So what will happen is as it's learning in the training process, it's effectively punished for making these kinds of mistakes. And we say bad model if you're effectively like making a mistake or a hallucination. And by the way, we say it's especially bad if it's in certain categories, like if it's in health.
Mhm.
Whereas if maybe it has a piece of information that's it's kind of like blurry if it's accurate, it's like pretty accurate. It's hard you maybe debate it. So in it actually with this model, it tries very hard to back up what it says. And so what we are finding, I think what your users are finding, is that it does have pretty high quality responses. And I think that's something that Google does uniquely well. Now, again, having said that, these are new systems. It's going to make mistakes. And I think part of this test period is you actually want to get these products out there. And I think a learning for me and many of us building in AI is that you need this incubation period because you can't really know just from internal testing, despite our best efforts to test as rigorously as possible, where because there's so many degrees of freedom, you can ask any question, any kind of combination, you can follow up with it in an infinite number of ways. You got to get it out there, and you have to get some trusted testers really using it, and then very quickly diagnose problems and fix it. And then it goes through this process of maturation where I think what you see over time is that these AI systems will become increasingly accurate and more dependable very quickly. And I think that's what we've seen as well.
I love that. Now, one of the things I've seen over the last year from Google is this emphasis on learning and working with AI models to figure out how they can optimize things like research and things like Learn LM. You mentioned this being a specially trained model. Are you able to dive a little bit deeper into the backend models that are in the system? Are we using Gemini 2.5 as yet? Are we leveraging things like deep research? And you mentioned reasoning. How are you
Yeah.
balancing like the chain of thought that might go into test time compute that could take a long time to generate a response versus
Yeah.
the immediacy that people typically expect from
Yeah.
search?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a custom model that's built on the Gemini 2 series, but it's been specifically trained for informational needs and using Google search. And so what that means is that as the model accepts a query or someone's question, it's learning the process of generating a plan, figuring out what these fan out queries are, finding information with certain search signals, and then rendering a response based on that. And those are all things that have been done. And by the way, the other thing is it's learned to put attention on the right kinds of information. So, for example, if you're asking for just an immediate, maybe sports score, like we have, you type into Google right now, any sports score, you get this one box at the top pretty much immediately. Like there's a bunch of really rich real time information just available. The model also has access to that. And so has been trained to understand and use that information, which makes it even more powerful and accurate for many of these questions. And so that's really what goes into the custom training. And then we do a bunch on reinforcement learning and agentic reinforcement learning, where the model actually learns this reasoning process to produce high quality, accurate, and factual responses and is rewarded for that, obviously. And if it makes mistakes,
Yeah.
it's punished. And then hopefully, like through that process, it learns to do a pretty good job most of the time.
Now, in terms of looking ahead, what should users expect in terms of just AI in search and the search experience evolving overall? Are they to expect that AI mode or its descendants will become the main sort of search experience, or is Google still thinking of maintaining traditional search and having AI search live alongside it?
Yeah. The good news is there's already, for in AI mode in this lab, there's already a really nice connection here where if you search for something and it generates an AI overview, which was where we said we found that AI is the most helpful for that use case, you can actually follow up in AI mode from that and then ask follow up conversations and go deeper. For a user who's just not thinking much, they put a question in to Google, that is a really easy and fast way to get more information, go deeper, and have a deeper journey on Google. And then for a power user who might know that they have a really hard thing, there's also ways that you can go right to AI mode and just start asking that question and going back and forth. And I think that choice and that those options are important to maintain, especially during the fact that these are new things and we're learning, but also people have different needs. And we've found that is a really important thing to offer that kind of choice to users. So we're still in the early phases here, but I think that our goal is that this is as effortless and easy as possible. I don't think we want people to worry too much about where you use Google. You should just put your question into Google. You get this this helpful AI overview if it feels like that's the most helpful. Maybe you get this grid of images if it feels like that's the most helpful. And then you can follow up and go deeper in AI mode. And that's a really simple thing. And I think we want it to also be simple across modalities. So whether it's a photo or a video or audio or text, like it should be as easy and seamless as talking to a person,
Yeah.
just going back and forth. And I think that's really one of the big unlocks with AI is that you don't have to have this keywordese framework. You can just ask really whatever you want. And that's why it's so expansionary. And we can do so much more for you now, given that interface.
I love that. And I love the fact that you're still retaining this principled approach of solving a user's problem. I think so many people looked at AI and they thought, how can AI be applied to search? And I think it sounds from how you're explaining it that Google kept saying, okay, what is the user trying to do? And how can we best do that? And if AI overviews is that solution, if AI mode is that solution, then we'll present that and we'll see how the product evolves to keep on solving that problem. I think that
Exactly.
sort of North Star is super helpful. All right. So the last set of questions that I want to look at are really just forward facing. When you think of search in the next 3 to 5 years, given the pace of AI that you're seeing today, personally, what are you thinking? What are you looking forward to the most? Are there any specific use cases that the current AI mode doesn't really solve well that you think the evolution of the product you're hoping that it will be able to tackle better?
Yeah, there's so much. It's dizzying at times to consider all the things that it could do. But I think for me, the reality is it's about just expanding what's possible so that you can get really the value of reasoning and information for any of your problems. And I think if you think about what's next, there's so much information just in the world and in all kinds of different areas. And increasingly, some of that information may actually be in other AI systems. And they're all AI is starting to talk to AI and collaborate and do really interesting things like that. And so obviously at Google Search, it's an information system predominantly. And so I think there's a lot, I'm very intrigued with how it can expand what information is available to it to be most helpful, whether that's information that might not be available as readily today or information that you have that you want to help augment with. There seems to be a lot of opportunities to really just make this do more for you. I think the other area is these systems, I think people come to Google looking to do something. Like they're not always just looking for information. It's part of a journey. And so we have a lot of opportunities to actually help you go further with these areas. We actually launched a service that's called BizMatch that actually helps connect to businesses through phone calls where an AI can help actually book and make reservations for you. That's an area that I feel like is really exciting because that really ties together the whole journey of what people are really trying to do. And that should be so easy. It should be effortless. You really just should be able to explain what you're trying to get done. And like I said, it makes a plan, it finds information, it makes stuff happen. And I think increasingly that's the expectation for people is that you have these superpowers now that you really couldn't do yourself as easily. And I think it's gonna be great. I think obviously it's not part of the core Google search day to day, but there's so many. I'm personally very excited for scientific discovery and drug discovery,
Yeah.
and we're starting to see like early progress of almost like AI scientists that can do breakthroughs, collaborate, and reason, and just the potential. I'm an optimist on this. I think that the potential for solving world problems and people's problems is just absolutely enormous. There's a whole group of people that I respect and admire working on that side of the problem, and I'm personally very excited to see that evolve in the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree. I'm excited about education and learning, which is why I'm particularly intrigued about what Google is doing. I've seen all the products, Notebook LM, deep research. I think it's going to be fascinating. I have 2 kids also, and the prospects of them being able to have personalized AI tutors that can help them to digest information quickly and process it in a way that they probably can't do it in a traditional learning environment. I think that's so fascinating.
I think that's a great one. It's absolutely one of mine too. I think like I love to learn, and I always find that it's incredibly hard because you either need to read a textbook, and you can't really ask many questions of the textbook,
Yeah.
and then you also want to try doing it yourself. But then when you try doing it yourself, you can't really get help doing it because no one else is with you. And if with an AI that has access to all of this, by the way, that was one of the things I was mentioning in terms of access to different types of information. Like the AI had access to that quality of educational content, and then it obviously has access to seeing and talking to you in the same way a person does.
Yeah.
I think you can do some pretty magical things.
Let me ask this before we wrap up. Is Google worried or thinking about product cannibalization? Meaning, we see tools like Gemini becoming increasingly popular, becoming increasingly the UI that people want to interact with the web through. Do you see a future where Gemini becomes that default interface and Google search as a standalone product almost disappears?
I think I really have started to appreciate this much more deeply since over the last year or so working in trying to bring AI into search in this way. There is just an enormity of needs that people have in the world every day. People want a specific piece of information. They want to know a phone number. They want to go pay their tax bill. And you really need to make sure the information is in the format that people need and it's as efficient and fast as possible. And in some cases, we find that something like an AI overview is like really efficient and helpful for people. And maybe if you combine that with AI mode, you have this natural back and forth that can occur. And for other cases, it may not be actually the best. And we see that from users. And I think you see some of these more exploratory questions people have as an example, where it wants to be more visual. You want to understand what's out there, see what people are saying, click through it to a different, hey, here's like some videos on the topic, here's some cool web articles on the topic. AI systems aren't as dialed on those kinds of things. And I'm mostly of a believer that the world is pretty vast and that there's going to be many ways and formats that people interact to get information. And I do think that this is one, though, where as we're adding, this is a growing one, clearly. Yeah. And as we build some products like AI overviews and AI mode, like we are seeing people use search more and wanting to use it more. I think that it's going to be a key part of what we do, but I don't think it's going to be all we do.
Awesome. Robby, thank you so much for joining us. I thought it was super helpful. I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners learned a lot. If users want to try AI mode or to dive deeper into AI overviews, can you just wrap up by telling them how they can access it?
Yeah, just Google AI mode, and then you'll go to the Google Labs page, and you can turn it on, and then you'll be able to access AI mode on your next time using Google.
And the AI mode is currently limited.
It's in the US. Okay. For US specific right now. So if you're in the US, you can turn that on. And obviously, we're looking to learn quickly of how it's going, and as we can, bring it to more people. But we're looking to just make something great and make sure that it's working well and people are loving it.
It's a fascinating product. I'm looking forward to tracking and seeing how it progresses. Robby.
Awesome. Thank you.
This was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to having you back on sometime.
Appreciate that. And thank you so much. It was great to be here.
All right. Take care.
See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.